Hello everybody, Ellie here for WhoCulture, and it is time for just a final bit of pre-finale speculation. We all love a bit of speculation, and also it is time for one final twist watch, twist watch, twist watch, twist watch, twist watch. Based on the Next Time trailer for The Legend of Ruby Sunday, the big mystery surrounding Susan Twist's character will be the focal point of that episode, and presumably we'll be getting some answers. So let's take a look at all of the clues and the evidence and the theories that we've had surrounding this character. Who she might be, what could possibly be going on, just what the hell does it all mean? While we're looking at these theories, let's get our trusty Malcolm's rating scale back out of the cobwebs, and we will look at each of these theories and rate them based on how likely we think they are going to actually be. So first of all, let's just look at the basics. Susan Twist is the actress, not the character, who has played a minor throwaway character in every episode of Season 1, and also in The Church on Ruby Road and Wild Blue Yonder. So to date, these are the characters that she has played so far. We have Isaac Newton's maid, Mrs. Merridew, in Wild Blue Yonder. We have the woman in the pub in The Church on Ruby Road. We have the comms officer in Space Babies, a tea lady in The Devil's Cord, the ambulance interface in Boom, the hiker in 73 Yards, Lindy's mother, Penny Pepperbean, in Dot and Bubble, and the painting of the Duke's mother in Rogue. Now, so far, the only two episodes that she has not appeared in is The Star Beast and The Giggle. But if you think about it, in The Star Beast, there was mention of a woman in Abu Dhabi who bought Rose's little toys, so maybe she could be the mysterious woman. Also, there is the mysterious floating hand that picked up the toy maker's tooth at the end of The Giggle. It's possible that those two mystery characters could end up being Susan Twist. Maybe they are actually secret characters within those two episodes as well. Who knows? There's always a twist at the end. Now, in The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death, Susan Twist will be playing a character called Susan Triad, and we presume that she will be the head of Triad Technology. Now, Triad Technology has been mentioned already, first mentioned in The Giggle, and we have seen the logo as well in some other episodes too, but what it actually is so far, we don't actually know, so I assume we're going to find out. And Russell T Davies himself has teased on the official Doctor Who podcast that Triad will have, quote, consequences for everyone. So clearly Triad Technologies is not something good, I would say. So let's take a look at all of our theories that we've had so far. First off, we have Susan Twist is Sutekh. So Sutekh was a villain in the 4th Doctor serial, The Pyramids of Mars, and he was very, 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 very powerful. He's probably one of the most powerful villains in Doctor Who history. He's a god, and he also has links to Egypt and Egyptian mythology as well. So first of all, Susan Triad Technology. Susan Technology. Sutekh. Also, Sutekh is a god, and gods and the pantheon of gods are a big element of this season. We already know this. We've had the introduction of the Toy Maker and Maestro, and Russell T Davies has told us that we will be having more gods appear. And in another shot in one of the trailers, there are planets that appear to be kind of melting or disintegrating in the sky. And Sutekh is one of the few villains who actually probably has the power to actually do that. I said actually probably about 3 times in that sentence, but trust me. And also, Russell T Davies, as we know, is a big fan of classic Who, and he has said that he'd love to do a straight sequel to some of the classic stories. Now, Pyramids of Mars hasn't had a sequel, so it's a ripe story to have a sequel episode too. So how likely do I think this theory is? On my rating of Malcolms, I think this has a rating of 5 Malcolms out of 10 of being likely. There's a 50-50 chance here. I think the Sutekh, Susan Technology, definitely lends itself to being a clever play on words, definitely. Also, didn't he say that there would be no returning monsters and villains in this first season? So I kind of guess that puts that theory to rest slightly. Do I think he's likely to have brought back such a niche villain to the classic audience? I don't think so. But it would be pretty cool if he does. Okay, so let's move on to another theory, that Susan Twist is Susan Foreman. So Susan Foreman, of course, is the Doctor's granddaughter and was the original Doctor Who companion from 1963. So let's look at some of these clues. First and foremost, Susan has been directly mentioned in this season in The Devil's Court. Now, Russell T Davies has a history in his previous era of planting words throughout the series to hint of things that are to come. Think Bad Wolf, think Torchwood. So he's very meticulous when it comes to dropping hints like that. Now obviously this was quite an obvious hint to drop, like the Doctor literally gave a history of the character as Susan, but was there more to that backstory than just a bit of exposition? Again, let's look at the names: Susan Twist, Susan Triad, Susan Foreman. Susan. We've been saying this from the very beginning, but we forget that Susan Twist is the actress. Her name, while it could be relevant, also could be completely irrelevant. It's just the actress's name. Do I think Russell T Davies would be wacky enough to literally cast someone based on their name? Yes I do. But it could equally not be the case at all. Then we have the fact that Russell T Davies actually teased Susan all the way back in January 2023 on Instagram. He commented on a clip of Susan's departure, whatever happened to her, which obviously got fans speculating that he was hinting that she may be returning. Then we have the name S Triad, which we've seen in the trailers, Susan Triad. That is obviously an anagram of Tardis. And we know that Susan Foreman was the one who claimed to have invented that acronym. So is that another hint that Susan Foreman is who Susan Twist might be? My rating for this one is 7 Malcolms out of 10. I think it's maybe more likely than the Sutekh thing, mostly based on the fact that we had that exposition scene explaining who Susan was, and as I just mentioned, I feel like all those exposition scenes that we've had are included because the audience needs to know that information moving forward. And so I think, why have mention of Susan if it's not going to be relevant later on? You haven't mentioned any of the other companions, really, so why Susan? I feel like of all of the theories we've had, this is the one that a lot of people have also speculated about, and do I think they would be that obvious? Or is it a red herring? Do they want us to think that and then they're going to drop something completely different? That probably feels a little bit more likely at this point. I was so confident about it being Susan Foreman earlier on. Now I'm wondering if that's too obvious an answer. So the next theory, Susan Twist is the Tardis. Okay, so this one's a little bit more left field than perhaps the first two are, but we do know that something freaky is going on with the TARDIS. In 2 episodes now, The Devil's Court and Rogue, the TARDIS has let out this deep, long, groaning noise to suggest that something is not right. So I have no doubt that that will be relevant at some point in the future. So let's take a look at some of the clues here. As I just mentioned, S Triad is an anagram of TARDIS. Is it a little obvious? Maybe, but stranger things have happened. We have a shot in one of the trailers of the TARDIS being scanned inside Unit HQ, and the laser being used to scan the TARDIS is the exact same laser that we saw the ambulance interface using in Boom. And who was the face of that interface? Face of that interface? That's fun. Also, all of these characters Susan Twist plays have been appearing throughout space and time, so that could suggest that the TARDIS is involved somehow. And let's not forget that the whole idea of the TARDIS taking on human form is not unprecedented. We had a whole episode where this happened in The Doctor's Wife in Series 6, so it's not a new concept. I'm gonna be honest, I think this is one of the more likely theories. I'm gonna rate it 8 Malcolms out of 10 for likeliness here. While some are a little bit more obvious, this one, while maybe obvious in some regards, also I think has a lot of merit. First of all, the name, S Triad, TARDIS, I think that while obvious, it's not actually been as obvious. Some people have only just noticed that. We noticed it quite early on, but some people have only just made that connection, which I find quite interesting. So maybe it's not as obvious as we initially thought. I think some of the others are just too obvious to even really consider, whereas this one feels like it could be complicated enough to be obvious but also still work. Obviously we do know that the TARDIS is involved somehow. We've seen shots of it being scanned, as I mentioned. We know that the noises suggest something is going wrong here. Do I think she's maybe the TARDIS, or is the TARDIS is responsible for how she is appearing in all these places? I think maybe that's more likely, but I think a connection between Susan Twist's characters and the TARDIS is very, very likely. Okay, the next one is that Susan Twist is the Trickster. So the Trickster was actually a major villain in the Sarah Jane Adventures, and he's known for meddling with time and causing chaos with time, and basically tricking people. He's also a member of this pantheon, so again we do have a connection here to the pantheon of gods. And he would be a perfect villain for this big finale surprise twist. So let's look at some of the clues. As I just mentioned, the pantheon of discord was mentioned in the Devil's Chord, which is a group of gods which the Trickster is a part of. Susan Twist. Twist. Trick. Trickster. That one's a little bit less obvious, maybe a little bit of a reach. Is this the Trickster tricking people by messing with time, placing himself in the form of Susan Twist in various points in time as various characters to trick people and confuse people? Is that the whole idea? So also a few years ago, Russell T Davies teased on Twitter that the Trickster had, quote, a long game, but that was a, quote, story for another time. Is now that time? Are we now revisiting the Trickster? And of course we had the hooded figure who dropped Ruby at the church, in the church on Ruby Road. And the costume of that hooded figure looks very similar to the costume of the Trickster, who wears this long black robe with a hood. I'm going to be honest, this theory is, to me, the least likely. I'm going to give it 2 Malcolms out of 10. Do I think it's possible the Trickster could be returning? Absolutely. I'd love to see it. I feel like the Trickster was greatly underused and deserves to be in the main show. Do I think Susan Twist is the Trickster? Not so much. Don't really have much more to add there, to be honest. I'd like to see the Trickster return. Don't think that's impossible. Probably likely to happen. Don't think Susan Twist is that character. Another one, however, is that Susan Twist is Ruby's mother. So obviously another big mystery of this season is who is Ruby's birth mother? Where has Ruby come from? I assume we will be finding out who Ruby's mother is in this finale. Who the hooded figure was that left Ruby at the church on Christmas Eve in the church on Ruby Road. We're assuming that the hooded figure is the mother. They could be 2 different people. But let's look at the clues as to why we think Susan Twist might be Ruby's mother. So as I mentioned, the mystery of Ruby's parentage is one of the other major mysteries and plot threads of this season. So it makes sense that the 2 biggest questions and mysteries would merge together at the end. So it makes a lot of sense for who's Ruby's mother, who's Susan Twist? Oh, they're one and the same. Also, the last 2 characters that Susan Twist has appeared as, Penny Pepperbean and the portrait of the Duke's mother, they've both been mothers. So is that a hint that we are seeing a maternal figure here, a mother figure? Is that, some wink winks? Guess what? She's a mother. She's Ruby's mother. I mean, maybe. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 Malcolms. The more I think about it, the more I feel like, is it too obvious of an answer? Potentially. But also, maybe it's one of those things where it's so obvious that you disregard it and then it actually does turn out to be true. To be honest, I kind of hope that all these theories are wrong and we're completely off the mark entirely and there's something even better as an answer. But another theory that we have had is that Susan Twist is the Doctor's mother or the Doctor's wife. No, I don't mean River Song. I mean his original wife. He has a granddaughter, so he must have a wife. He must have had a wife or a spouse or a partner at some point to have a granddaughter. So there has been a lot of mention of the Doctor's family in this season. So he mentioned Susan, obviously, in the Devil's Chord. He told Poppy that his mum and dad left him in Space Babies. And in Boom, there's the whole dad to dad, dust to dust line. So there's been a lot of references here to the Doctor being a parent or to the Doctor's family as well. So could there be payoff to that? Obviously, Russell T Davies has been running with the Timeless Child arc. We thought it might get disregarded, but clearly not. Russell has decided he's going to take the reins and continue that story. And there have been lots of mentions and exploration of the themes of adoption in this season. We know the Doctor is adopted, and so there is now a question of who is the Doctor's mother. So the theory could be, yes, Susan Twist might be Ruby's mother, but maybe also the Doctor's mother, following him through time, trying to make contact with him. But if we want to look more at the wife theory as opposed to mother, then we look at the Doctor's reaction to Rhodes' proposal. Now, I mentioned in the Easter eggs for that some people suggested he was thinking of River Song during that proposal, but what if he was thinking of his original wife from back on Gallifrey? You know, whoever he had kids with. I originally thought, oh, maybe Susan Twist is appearing only to Ruby, but with Wild Blue Yonder, it seems that it is the Doctor who this Susan Twist character is appearing to. So again, that suggests that she's following him and trying to make a connection with him in some way, which would make sense if it was his birth mother trying to connect with him in some way. I'm not sure if we'll ever get an answer to where the Doctor originally came from. I don't know if it's one of those questions that's a bit like, what's the Doctor's name? Will there ever be a good enough answer, or is it best left a mystery? I also think there are so many mysteries and questions already being put forward in this season that adding even more probably is going to confuse people, and there are much more obvious mysteries and questions lingering at the moment to start adding more. So for that reason, I think this theory gets 3 Malcolms out of 10. I don't think it's very likely. If it's going to be anyone's mother, more likely to be Ruby's, but even that one maybe feels a little bit too obvious. But as I said, I don't know if I ever want to find out where the Doctor really comes from. I like the mystery, I think. I don't think Susan Twist is the Doctor's mother or wife. But I could be wrong. If we've missed any clues or theories, then please do let us know in the comments down below. And we'll see you back here this weekend with the ups and downs for The Legend of Ruby Sunday. In the meantime, I've been Ellie for WhoCulture, and in the words of River Song herself, goodbye, sweeties.